Flying cars, satellite technology, it could be the future of Sac PD.
Where they have flying cars, I wouldn't be surprised if years down the road we have those.
Police Department 101, who's getting a lesson in law enforcement? Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm Kristen Samos, and this was the site of the original headquarters for the Sacramento Police Department back in the 1800s. Think about law enforcement years ago. There were no phones or computers in cop cars. Officers walked foot patrols, and internet crime, what's that? Now think about what's in store for the future. We talked to the Sacramento Police Department's top cops, as well as some of those who will make up the police force of the future. Here's what we learned.
And I think what we have seen in the last couple of decades won't even approach what we're going to see in the next 10 years.
Sacramento Police Chief Albert Najera was 19 when he started working as a community services officer for the Sacramento Police Department. We won't tell you just how long ago that was, but we will say a lot has changed. A whole lot has changed. Anti-war protests, racial tension, and civil rights marches were common problems at the time. New to police work were portable radios.
The police department only had enough funding to provide one radio for every 2 officers, patrol officers. So what we did was most of the patrol cars then, if not all, were 2-officer cars. And in those days, the rookie or the least senior officer had to carry the radio because the senior officer didn't want to be burdened with carrying an additional piece of what was seen as a very unnecessary and burdensome piece of equipment.
And so the police radio became commonplace for the police officer. And it happened more than 100 years after this department was born. In fact, the Sacramento Police Department goes all the way back to the Gold Rush days. It's considered the oldest police department in the state, formed even before California was granted statehood. At the time, the police department was born from a group of residents who bound together during the tumultuous Gold Rush times. It wasn't until 1881 that officers were given uniforms, along with that famous 7-point star badge, both of which they had to buy themselves. In fact, the same year, the chief of police personally bought the department's first telephone and later received their first emergency call, a report of domestic violence. In 1895, this was introduced as their first vehicle, a horse-drawn buggy that was used as both an ambulance and a police transportation. My, how the times have changed. These days, an officer drives a patrol car loaded with fancy technology and wears a gear belt with radios, telephones, tools, and more. They're tools and technology that have made police work more efficient and effective. And it's technology, they say, that will continue to expand and revolutionize their work.
When I first came on, I would have never guessed we'd be able to track every single officer with GPS. I would have never thought we had a computer in the car. I would have never thought we had cameras in the car. I would have never thought half the stuff that we have now. And I'm sure I'll be the same way 10 years from now. Never would have guessed that we would have had what we have then.
So what will they have to work with 10 years from now? What about 20 years or 30? Here's a look at the problems police officers foresee in the future, the ways they'll have to grow to deal with them, and what they're doing now to keep up, beginning with that one modern weapon they all agree an officer won't be able to live without.
I think you'll see a police officer with all kinds of technology attached to them.
I think a lot of the biggest change will be in our technology, what we have available at our fingertips.
And not only is there a need for technology, but it's also a need for officers and police personnel to understand the technology, because the criminals all have good technology and are starting to learn how to use it.
Are they ever the #1 new type of crime officers expect to see? Those involving computers, like internet scams, identity theft, and global crime, which is done in another country and targets a victim closer to home. So what's the solution? How can they fight a kind of crime that many times they can't even see?
But one of the things that we'll definitely need in the future is that technology savvy person that can track down certain things, as opposed to the officer that we might have hired 20 years ago that knows absolutely nothing about computers.
While technology may make the criminal mind more advanced, it will also advance police work considerably. In fact, technology already exists and is being tested that will put police 2 steps ahead when it comes to handling good old-fashioned crime, like running from the law.
There's a lot of work going into right now being able to disable a car from a distance to be able to terminate high-speed pursuits. The technology is already there with the OnStar systems. Well, it's not that big a step to go one step further and send a signal to the car where it shuts itself off.
In fact, any technology that allows officers to stop a crime from happening without being too close to the criminal would be better and safer for everyone involved.
Anything that can bring a violent person down or stop them without them getting hurt and without us getting hurt is a win-win for everybody, because an officer doesn't come to work wanting to shoot somebody or planning on shooting somebody, and when they do, it's a very traumatic event for the officer. So anytime we can use, in the past it's been beanbag rounds, batons, now it's tasers. Hopefully in the future we can stand even a block away from somebody and get them to stop doing whatever they're doing, whether they're a suicidal person with a knife or somebody that's endangering our lives. The farther away we can be and stop them, the better it is for us.
Technology could also come in handy when it comes to one of the oldest tricks in the book, lying. Technology that will allow for retinal scans, thumb scans, or facial recognition would eliminate a major problem for officers on the street.
I think also, for me, the biggest challenge is sometimes identifying people. It could be someone who's just visiting from another country that is not in the system, and having to do that verification on them, or somebody who's actually lying to us and we're not able to find them in the system because they're giving us a bad name or a false name. So having that technology at our fingertips out in the field to determine who is this person and why are they not telling me the truth as far as who they are would be extremely beneficial.
That kind of technology is often tested and perfected by the military and then handed down to police departments. The military has also developed satellite and video technology that law enforcement will likely use in the near future. In particular, the ability to get photos or a real-time look into a neighborhood from a distance away. It's a tool that'll help officers monitor communities and large masses of people.
We are looking at a significant amount of video cameras all over the city, and I think at some point in time our officers will be able to select a camera in a particular neighborhood from their cars and be able to see what is occurring on that camera even though they're some distance away. And so we will be able to police on a much grander scale, if you will, using technology and using our officers' time much, much better.
While this might feel like our police will be farther away, technology would actually bring them closer. Sure, there are privacy laws they'd have to adhere to, and cameras could only monitor public places. On the flip side, technology would allow us, the residents of Sacramento, to better monitor our police.
My estimate will be that you will be able to get onto a computer, look up to see what patrol car is closest to your area, click on the patrol car and see if you can communicate with the people inside.
That's right. Those fancy computers that officers now have may someday double as a video telephone so they can see who's calling. At the same time, if you want to see what an officer is doing in your neighborhood, you may someday be able to log onto a computer, click on your street, and find the answers. Answers Chief Nahara believes should be readily accessible.
The police department belongs to the public, and they should know, and they have every right to know what we're doing in the neighborhood. We're looking for a suspect that was involved in a high-speed pursuit. We're looking for a missing person that has Alzheimer or something like that. And the ability for us to give information to you in terms of what's happening in your neighborhood, what kinds of crimes are occurring in your neighborhood, all of those kinds of things are really important for us.
Also important is the ability to communicate with the people they serve. In a 2002 Time magazine article, Sacramento was named the most diverse city in the nation, as well as the most integrated. That means we have all walks of life living in this city and dozens of different languages being spoken. Jesus Trejo is a police recruit for SAC PD and the future of the police department. He recognizes the language barrier as one of the biggest potential problems once he becomes a cop.
I definitely think it's a problem now when officers aren't able to fully communicate with the community. I think that lack of communication may sometimes make tension between the department and the community.
But someday soon, officers may have computer software on their laptops that could instantly translate their conversation into any language. And for those at home, they could log on to the police department's website and download the information they need in the language they prefer. A bigger problem, getting the many cultures to accept police as their friend. It's a problem patrol officers see frequently.
A lot of Middle Eastern backgrounds, they don't use police. They don't call. They deal, for instance, in the domestic matters. They will not call, even if one or the other is getting pretty badly beaten up by the other. They will not call. It's against their culture.
The police department has a few solutions to this problem as well. The first being an emphasis on growing their police force so that Sacramento's vastly diverse residents can relate to the officers on their streets.
You will see, and we're making good strides in that regard, but you will see, take a picture of Sacramento and line the different demographics up, and then line police officers up, and you'll see a mirror image. That's our goal, and that's what we're shooting for, and I think we'll get there.
We have about 450,000 people in the city right now, and that's growing. We are continuing to grow relatively quickly with the new housing which is being built within our city.
Mayor Heather Fargo touts Sacramento's growing diversity as one of the city's best traits. She says a top-notch police department that truly represents the city it serves is what's required to keep it that way.
I think it's important for law enforcement to reflect the community because the public has to feel comfortable with people that are there to protect them. And whether that's in our police department or our fire department or even the emergency medical people that show up, people need to feel comfortable with the city staff which are providing services.
And in fact, with a city that's expected to continue expanding in diversity and in size, police say it'll become more important than ever to reflect the people they serve, as well as to have those people play an active role in keeping the city safe.
We're seeing where if we get communities involved, and communities are heavily involved in their community, that we can actually make some changes, and they can be involved heavily in that.
Another problem officers foresee has to do with the quick growth of the city and the ability for police to simply get around. We see it every day with crowded freeways, but imagine responding to an urgent call during rush hour on the other side of the city.
Well, we're already seeing problems with transportation. You know, as the city grows, more people move here, the streets get more packed, and our main mode of transportation right now is cars. So if Franklin Boulevard is wall-to-wall traffic, then we're in the middle of that, and we can't get past it either. I mean, a siren can do a little bit, but if the street is packed from side to side, we can't get through.
This city is growing very, very rapidly, and when we run out of space, what's going to happen is we're going to continue to grow in terms of density, and that's going to provide its own set of problems.
Problems like tracking police officers. Right now, the department uses an XY scale with logarithms to determine where each officer is.
Once we start getting high rises, we're going to have to be able to track our officers up and down too, because if we have a 60-story building, for instance, and we know our officers in there, it still doesn't do us any good. We're going to have to be able to track elevation.
And once an officer is located, how will he or she be able to quickly get around? That's a huge problem now, and one that will have to be solved soon.
I don't know if it'll be motorcycle bicycles or some kind of device that actually is kind of a mini transport vehicle that doesn't touch the ground. It's almost like a Jetsons thing.
Enter the vehicle of the future. No one knows exactly what it will be, but they do agree they need something that's fuel efficient, fast, and able to avoid traffic altogether.
You see now on news programs where they have flying cars. I wouldn't be surprised if years down the road we have those.
Imagine cars that fly, technology that stops a man without touching him, satellite photos from another neighborhood. It seems almost otherworldly, but we're told it's possible. Anything's possible, according to Captain Ted Mandela, who retired from the Sacramento Police Department in December. After 30 years in law enforcement, 26 of those years was Sac PD.
It's amazing, just through my career, to sit back and see where we were when I first came on the department. Basically, you had a squad car, you had a radio in the squad car, and that was pretty much it. And now we're at the point now where the cars are packed with computers and information right at the officer's fingertips inside the squad car.
For Mandela, it's made for an incredible and interesting career. He remembers when the police academy lasted 13 weeks. Now it's 6 months. The entire department of 250 people operated out of one building downtown. Now they have 3 locations and more than 800 personnel. Technology began with a computer the size of a room. Now the technology boggles his mind.
The flip side is, as technology grows, the criminal mind grows with it. It's made easy by utilizing technology for devious means, which will be a challenge, will continue to be a challenge for law enforcement officers in the future.
There is no doubt that the future brings with it possibilities and advances that we can't even begin to dream up. But top police officials assure us, regardless of the year, the type of technology, or the way the world becomes, there are a few things that will never change. Namely, the need for a police officer to be a compassionate, understanding person, the need to problem solve and communicate, and the need for unmatched standards. All of the traits that even the best technology can't provide.
Top police officials assure us the future of law enforcement and the city of Sacramento looks exciting. In fact, some exciting news in the not-so-distant future. You can expect to see a 3rd police substation open up, probably in the North Natomas area. Also, in years to come, police say they'll be forming more alliances with the different cultural groups in Sacramento. In this next story, we're looking at a program that does just that. It's called the Cultural Community Academy. Here's our story.
For the first time in our history living in this country, we had this training done for our people.
For dozens of members of the Slavic community, this is a special night. For their people, a select group of pastors, professionals, and leaders young and old, this is graduation night. Their diplomas come not from a school teacher, but from the chief of the Sacramento Police Department. The program? You could call it Law Enforcement 101. They call it the Cultural Community Academy.
It's important for all communities, the ones that don't understand English, to know that there are certain things that are critical to their public safety. How to call 911, what to do when they get pulled over for a traffic stop. We teach them law enforcement culture.
This 5-week academy teaches students everything from the role of law enforcement to basic police functions like traffic stops, gang issues, and how to spot illegal drug use. For those who don't understand English, an interpreter and earpieces are provided. Captain Rich Shirashi knows how deeply the community is affected when they don't understand the way their society works. His parents were immigrants who struggled to learn the American culture. This is his chance to teach others how law enforcement helps them.
My parents were telling me that when they were coming over on the boat, that they didn't even know how to use a Western toilet. When they got here, there was nobody here to tell them the customs, the traditions that go on that everyone seemed to know. Well, I remember that, and I'm in that position where I can do something about it, and so that's why I have the passion that I do.
We need more officers. We need more dispatchers. We need more folks to work with us.
The Academy is a joint effort with the Sacramento District Attorney's Office, and it's believed to be the only program of its type in the country. A program that may prove groundbreaking when it comes to teaching new immigrants emergency information. It's information that's so familiar to most of us, we dangerously assume it's known by all.
Where we take them to communications and show them what happens when they call in for an emergency. In fact, that was one of their concerns, was they didn't even know what an emergency was.
prior to the academy, I think people were really afraid to approach an officer. And if they had an issue or if they needed help, most didn't know how to go about getting help.
Ah Mua graduated from the police department's first Cultural Community Academy in October of 2005. It was held for the Hmong community. Since then, academies have been planned for the Slavic, Hispanic, Vietnamese, and Muslim communities, and more are expected to take place as police see the bonds they're able to build with the residents they serve.
I think especially for some of the elders, some of the traditional leaders and parents who, have been really frustrated, I think they walk away feeling empowered because now they have information and they, have made connections with some of the VIPs. They got their questions answered.
And that, according to Chief Nahara, is what this program is all about.
It's imperative for a law enforcement agency to have the trust and the confidence of the community it polices, all of the community, and most especially folks that are immigrants or people that are at any sort of disadvantage. It's really important that a police department be able to communicate effectively with that community and have their trust and know that they will call us when they have problems.
The hope is that this will be just the beginning of a relationship between the police department and the individual communities they serve, a relationship that will benefit everyone involved. Officers plan on consulting these academy graduates when they have questions about their culture or need volunteers to help out.
We'll invite them to our social events here. We want them to make the police department a friendly place, one that they can trust and have confidence in. Well, heck, the last Hmong Academy at graduation, we had 2 people sign up to be police officers.
I think it's a good opportunity for us to understand better what police is doing and adjacent agencies, what they're doing. So if they need our assistance, we'll be capable of assisting them.
I think it really helped those of us who participated to walk away feeling like we are a part of the greater community.
I just want to thank him. It's about time, and we want to help, but if you show us how to do it, we'll help. It is important for us to know the laws and the regulations of this country. And for 15 years that our people live in this county, we never had such a training. On behalf of our 150,000 people in Sacramento from the former Soviet Union, we want to thank you.
The Cultural Community Academy so far has been a huge success, not just for the police department, but for the different communities they've reached out to. In fact, the Hmong community is already asking for their next academy to be scheduled. This next story is about a man, his truck and dog which were stolen, and the officers who helped to get them back. It's today's Above and Beyond story about how that extra effort officers make really does make a difference to the residents they serve. December 11, 2004 began as an ordinary day for Eric Dadmer.
I woke up early to go skiing. It's a couple-hour drive to Kirkwood. We take the back roads, and I had to pick up my friend, and I was excited and ready to go, and I was leaving quickly. I had already loaded the night before.
He loaded up his dog and best friend, Buddy, who also happens to be the mascot for the Sac State ski team.
I'll be right back, Buddy.
Eric then ran back inside to quickly call his friend, and that's when the morning took a turn.
And I just ran in for a minute and called my friend to say I was on my way. And I hadn't even walked my dog. I was going to walk him while my friend was loading the truck. And next thing I know, I came out and my truck was gone. And my dog was gone. Forget the truck.
The truck and the dog had been stolen right from his front yard in East Sacramento. As you can imagine, having any personal property taken is troubling. But for the Dadmers, they'd rather part with almost anything than part with Buddy.
And I was just crushed because my wife and I don't have any children, so he's our son, and he sleeps with us in our bed. And You know, so I was crushed. I couldn't imagine my life without Buddy.
Eric quickly got on the phone and called the Sacramento Police Department.
A stolen vehicle?
He was thrilled to get not only an understanding response from the call taker, but a team of 2 community service officers, 3 police officers, and a K-9 unit, who immediately began by taking a report, calling animal shelters, and driving up and down city streets near his home.
Just the compassion that they had, you know, they were sensitive. They were sensitive officers.
Brian Webb was one of the responding officers that early morning and remembers dealing with a very emotional Eric Dadmer, an emotion he, as a dog owner, could understand.
Oh, he was frantic. He was very worried, not so much for the car. I mean, he wanted the truck back, but it was more to get the dog, the loved one back, and the Sac State mascot for the ski team back.
And yes, there is a happy ending to this story. The dog and the truck were found 26 hours later, only 3 blocks away. It was hidden behind a convalescent hospital. One of the residents called the police, who then called the Dadmers.
When I arrived to my truck and let him out, he was so happy.
Well, it makes this job worth it because, you know, we don't always see the best side of things out here, but it's nice to see a happy ending and be able to know that you were able to help a little bit in bringing that about.
It was more than a little bit to Eric Dadmer and his wife Helen. They were touched enough to send a letter to the department's police chief, some of which reads, quote, "The officers arrived immediately, took care of business right away, including calling the animal shelters to alert them about our missing dog. Thank you so much for providing such excellent service and for being there anytime someone needs help. Wow, the Sacramento Police Department is the best in the country."
It's important to try to go the extra mile no matter what we have, whether it's a shooting to it's a simple neighbor complaining about a dog barking call. In this case, it's a gentleman that had his car stolen, which had his dog in the car also. So time permitting, we try to go the extra mile, look as hard as we can, talk to neighbors, see if anyone had seen the vehicle or the dog running down the street.
And it was just a really nice feeling to see the compassionate side of the police.
It was that compassionate response that gained new respect from a resident. And for the officers involved, a happy ending is something they remember too. After all, many will admit it's why they got into this career in the first place and why they keep going. After 3 years, this is our final edition of City Beat. To view past shows, check out the police department website at www.sacpd.org, or you can purchase copies of the show by going to peppers.tv. On behalf of the Sacramento Police Department, I'm Kristen Samos. Thanks for watching.